Hi, guys. I am Sharon Mistowski, the founder and broker of record for Horizon Lending Services. And today we have a small group with us, and I'm so excited to have these young ladies here. This is what you call true girl power. Welcome, Heather, and welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. So, happy to be here.
Aw, thank you. So we had to fight downtown traffic. I fell over a homeless guy. And it's not my comfort level. And yeah, Heather, I saw Heather in the parking lot, so I yelled at Heather, hoping that she could come and rescue me. It's like, Heather, please.
And I did.
And she did.
I came to your rescue.
So she can outrun me, but I'm probably heavier, so I could sit on someone and she could run. So we can totally tell that we are not city folk, that we are truly urban.
Yeah, suburban. Yes.
So Heather and I have known each other for 5 years.
Yeah,
6
at
years?
least. Yeah, probably 6. Yeah.
Heather has done been my real estate agent for the last 3 transactions, right?
Yes,
Salina,
proudly. And thank you so much for choosing me.
Absolutely love this woman. I can truly say Heather is one of the best. And you're a broker now, right, Heather?
I am. I'm a broker. Yes.
How do you pronounce the name of your brokerage?
Elysian.
What does Elysian mean?
Elysian means perfection and divinely inspired. It's a Greek word for sort of an oasis.
And how did you come up with that?
I saw it on Pinterest one day. I've been thinking about starting my own brokerage, and I knew I didn't want to name it after myself because I felt like naming it after yourself kind of puts you before your clients, I felt like. So I wanted to come up with sort of a different name for it. And I was literally scrolling on Pinterest one day, and that came up on my scroll, and I was like, that's it.
It is such a unique name. I absolutely love it. And it so depicts who you are, Heather. You have such great energy. You're a beautiful person inside and out. I love this woman.
Thank you.
She's such a perfectionist. People love her. Sellers love her. Buyers love her because she's got integrity. She's really fun to work with. She'll really accommodate you. Heather's my girl.
I try to do it all. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And she puts up with my antics.
And we get into some antics together, which is always fun.
We do, like hollering at Heather to rescue me from a homeless person that probably really wasn't even there. Yeah. So Heather, as a broker, I'm going to put you on the hot spot for a moment.
I'm ready.
We have some really interesting things going on in our industry right now.
Yes.
This is just about real estate brokers. And tell us a little bit about what the hell is going on right now in the industry with all this broker commission. What do we do? What is your take on that?
So kind of a little summary of how we got where we are. So we had a big lawsuit, and it was on behalf of sellers. And basically what they did was they sued the National Association of Realtors, saying that the commission that they were paying, it covering the buyer agency commission, was sort of illegal, and they were being forced to pay it.
Was there a certain group of people that sued?
Yeah, it was a class action lawsuit of
people just got in.
like 1,000 sellers or something. And so these lawyers took this lawsuit and collectively took it to court, and they won a judgment. And they won. And then what happened was the National Association of Realtors decided to settle. And in the settlement were a bunch of new rules about how we can sort of operate on behalf of buyers. So historically, what has happened is sellers have traditionally paid both their listing agency commission and the buyer agency commission. And that's the total 6% that you typically pay. One of the things that was alleged in the lawsuit was that was not negotiable, which was very surprising to me because that actually has always been negotiable. So I don't really understand the legal action that was taken there because yes, normally it is 6%, but you see, I'll just use Redfin as an example. So the way Redfin does business is they take like a 1% commission, still pay the 3% commission, and then they get the full percent commission of the buy when they help the seller buy.
Okay, so I understand that.
Yeah, so that is obviously a negotiable thing. So I don't understand the whole fact that they were saying it wasn't negotiable. But one of the things that they did say in the lawsuit, which is true, is if you as a seller are paying a buyer agency commission, you are paying someone in essence to negotiate against you.
Yes.
So that does make sense in that way. And when I first got into business 13 years ago, I didn't know that was how the commission stuff was split up. And so it was kind of strange to me. I was like, oh, okay, well, but the way that is thought of is you are paying that buyer broker to bring the buyer to you, to buy your house. So that's the other side of the coin of the way you can look at it. So I don't know. You want me to kind of go into the specifics of what the...
Well, yeah, like a lot of buyers, and here's an example. A buyer called me the other day and they were saying, Sharon, we hear that that we're going to have to start paying the buyer's commission now. Is that really true? And we're barely able to come up with the down payment and plus closing costs. Are we going to have to come up with another 3% to pay for an agent? And we don't have that. What do we do? And can we roll that in? Well, that's a whole different podcast on can we roll that in? And
yes, it is. With
my business.
That's a big conversation.
And so, but they were asking me, and I'm like, you know what? That's really out of my wheelhouse. You're going to have to negotiate that. And I'm sure it's not going to me, it looks no different than you're always going to negotiate that with the seller. That's going to be part of the negotiation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But now you come into like on FHA, you can do, the seller can pay 6% concessions, but is that 6% going to be 3% to the buyer's agent? And then they're going to be left with 3%. So you're really screwing the consumer no matter how you look at it, or is it going to be a different component? So what's your opinion about that?
I think it is honestly a very
mouthful. That was a lot.
It's just, and I don't have a good answer for it, and I wish I did, honestly. So all of the actions that are part of what this lawsuit is saying has to happen, all of that is supposed to start happening in July.
Okay.
So we have until July to kind of start figuring this out. So if your buyers want to buy right now, they probably can get their stuff covered. But in July, it's a whole new ballgame. So we really won't know what this is going to look like until we're probably about 6 months in. So I would say between like July and December, there's going to be a lot of different changes and things like that until we get to sort of that new norm.
So do you guys have a buyer's agreement though, right? That's been there all the time, but now you're just having to actually use it?
So here's the challenge with the buyer agreement. So yes. So typically what I do is I'll go out and I'll show someone calls and says, I want to go look at homes. And I say, okay, let's set up some showings. Let's talk about pre-approval when we get together. So we'll typically go see 2 or 3 homes. And in the course of showing those homes, we'll talk about pre-approval. We'll talk about representation so that we're all on the same page. I'm only going to really do that probably once before I actually get that buyer agency signed. That's just kind of the way I work. I'll give you a freebie so that we can create rapport. And so, frankly, I know I want to work with you too. It's not just you want to work with me. I want to work with you too. And you're going to sort of follow my advice on getting pre-approved and that kind of thing. What's different now is that we're going to have that buyer agency agreement signed before we ever open a door for anyone.
And that is so weird to me, Heather.
It is so weird.
What if, I don't know, it's just so weird because what if you don't want to work with them? What if they don't want to work with you?
Exactly.
What if they just called you on the fly, yet they have their mother who does real estate or their cousin or some bullshit? Yeah. I mean, what do you do on something like that?
I think what's going to have to change is we're going to have to start getting together before we ever go look at homes. We're going to have to get together for coffee, for lunch, for dinner, something like that.
Consultation.
Have a consultation, kind of like we do on the seller side. Where we go to the house and we have a sit down conversation and we say, this is the way things are going to work. Now, the key to the buyer agency representation that is going to be interesting is what the lawsuit says is whatever it says in the agreement about how you get paid, you cannot then go make more money if the seller is offering you a commission.
So if it says 1%, you got to do 1%. If you don't know where that 1% is coming from, but if you say 3%, you may scare the hell out of the buyer. And so it's going to be contingent upon if the seller is going to agree to it. Can you put up to, can you put like an up to amount?
I don't think so.
So it has to be an affirmative, like this is what it's going to be regardless.
Yep. And so in my opinion, what probably is going to happen is a lot of the agreements are going to say 3%. And then there's going to be if the seller isn't going to offer that, then we'll renegotiate that. And we're just going to have that agreement. It's going to have to.
Wow.
Because
I don't know how this is helping anyone. To me, it's just so confusing. The process is so confusing anyway.
I'm so glad you said that and you feel that way because I honestly feel like, and this, I don't want to get political, but I feel like this is like an attack on home ownership. I really do, because it's another barrier to home ownership.
It is. It totally is.
Especially for those first-time home buyers, because they don't have the equity in a home that they're selling. But then they could, say a seller has $50,000 in equity, just for round numbers. They're going to be able to use that $50,000 in equity to pay their buyer agent. To find them the next home.
If they agree to pay.
If they agree to pay it, which they should, because you want representation, right? But first-time home buyer doesn't have that. Like your home buyers that you're talking about that called you.
Not at all.
They don't have that ability. So they're very tight. And then from a lending perspective, I I would think that's hard because then you have to make sure that the appraisal comes back with those with that amount rolled into it, which if it doesn't meet appraisal, then what happens? Everything
I see 1978, 1983 happening all over again, like the crash of 2005, where the appraisals were being, I don't want to say cushioned, but the appraisals were being inflated a little bit to cover like closing costs and all this other crap that you could float in there. Yep. I totally see this crash coming. I totally see all this dishonesty and all this other crap coming on because the market can't support it. It absolutely cannot support it right now.
I don't think so either. And I really do think that what is going to end up happening is that sellers are going to still pay that fee. I really think that that's probably what's still going to happen.
Because if you don't put a buyer's commission in there, who the hell's going to show your home? You're not working for free.
Exactly.
I don't work for free.
No.
I wouldn't expect real estate to work for free.
No one should expect us to work for free.
And you're not door openers, by the way. They are not door openers.
No, that is like
so hard.
That is like 0.5% of what we do is open a damn door.
Fabulous doing it, but that is not what they do.
Thank you.
And Heather looks so fabulous. She wears her tutu. She wears heels. They're optional.
I don't know where we were, but
I don't digress.
No, no, it is not in anyone's best interest to make a huge purchase like a home without representation.
It's so crazy.
It's just not.
It's
not good for sellers and it's not good for buyers. And I'll tell you why it's not good for sellers either. One of the biggest things for sellers that creates lawsuits is disclosure issues. And if you don't disclose things to a buyer, it can come back on you for 5 years after you close your home.
Okay.
So say you have a listing agent, you tell your listing agent, I'm not paying a buyer commission. The listing agent says, okay, I'll go ahead and open the door for buyers. It's fine. I'll do an open house. We'll get a buyer. We won't worry about their representation, which I would not do as a listing agent, but some would. So, and then, you're questioning like,
so open houses, meaning they posted on the MLS that there's going to be an open house and people just go there.
People just go there. And then I don't know how the offer gets written, but somehow the offer gets written, you get under contract and you decide not to disclose termites or something. I had termites 3 years ago. It's been 3 years. I'm not going to put that on my disclosure. And then the buyer buys and then they find termites when they get the house. But if they had a representative and they've been told they need an inspection and they've been told they need a termite inspection. And, that's a protection, not just for the buyer, but it's also a protection for the seller. And sellers really, they need to understand that. And
I don't get it at all, Heather. It's like a buyer, there's so much more to it than just writing a contract. There's so much more to it. Just understanding like option periods, like, what's earnest money? What's an option period? What's an appraisal? What's an inspection? Do I need one? Do I not? Who's going to negotiate that? What if the appraisal value comes back in? What if I lose my option money? There's so many things that go into it. It's incredible. Yeah. It's all legalities. A human being, a normal person surfing the internet does not have that knowledge.
No.
A seller's not going to tell you because it's not in their best interest.
Exactly.
They have got to be represented.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. Like these people that are out there willy-nilly think I search the MLS, I find my own home. They just go and unlock the door. It's like, well, that's all fine and well, but that's such a small percentage of what it's about.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the other thing is too, if a buyer even wanted to represent themselves, I'm not even sure where they would start because the forms and contracts that we use to make offers on behalf of buyers, you can only use them if you're licensed. So, what I was talking through this with my husband when this all came out and I was, just venting and coming up with all these things in my mind. And I'm thinking, if I were a buyer wanting to buy a home and I wanted to represent myself for whatever reason, I would literally go get a real estate license. I would literally go to real estate school, take that 3 months that it takes to go through real estate school. It costs you about $1,200. Go through real estate school and actually learn some things before
Most people don't know that because most people think that they just open the door for me. They just write a contract. So they don't understand everything that goes into it and the repercussions of not being represented. Because it's such a, it's like a money pit. It's like the legalities there and the lawsuits, the pending lawsuits are incredible.
They are. Absolutely
incredible.
And when you think about how much money you're spending on that house, it is literally the biggest purchase you're ever going to make until you make the other purchase for the next home. It's literally the biggest thing you're going to do in your life. So why would you not look to a trusted advisor to help you do that?
Well, it's crazy because I have a friend right now and he's got a for sale by owner and it's out there in Irving and it's in a part of town that, the price point's, under $300,000. So a person came to him, a family, and so they're wanting me to write the contract. I'm like, I am not a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely no.
Yeah.
And
You're opening yourself up to liability.
Oh my gosh! It's like,
writing a
it's like I can
contract.
send you a blank contract that I got off of Google.
Right, exactly.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
And so I told Don, I said, look, you're ultimately going to have to get a real estate agent to do this because you're just opening yourself up. You're in a part of town that's questionable anyway. This is his uncle's house that he's had. He's lived there for like 85 years. And so he's in a nursing home. So now this house is sitting there. He's put like $80,000 of improvements in it. And so now he's selling it, wanting to get the best buck for, Uncle Don or Uncle George or whoever the hell it is. And then
Uncle Buck.
Oh my God. I don't know who the hell it is. Some uncle. So he's out there. He put all this money to it. And so now he's trying to sell it by himself because he thought he could do it because of the market right now. Everyone that's coming in there is asking the question, Senor, how much for rent? Because they don't understand. It's like now you're in a different type of market where you have to be represented because one, you're not Hispanic. You don't know the area. You just open yourself up to a huge can of worms.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and they don't know how to write a contract. They don't know where it is. They don't know how the semantics of it. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, long story short, he's going to be calling a real estate agent.
Yeah, he needs one. It really does boggle my mind that people, I probably help people buy or sell about 40 to 45 homes a year. Most people I think the average is people own 5 homes in their lifetime. That's the average. You're not the average.
I'm so not average.
But most people, that's the average is 5. So if you think about the fact that you do this 5 times in your whole lifetime, if you're 80 years old, you've owned 5 homes and you think you're going to do it on your own. Why? Why are you going to do that?
I don't get it, Heather. Yeah. But thank you for that that explanation because we haven't even skimmed the surface.
No, it's a really, really, really big conversation. It's going to change the landscape, not only financially, but also just in the way that we have to work as agents because now we have rules that we have to abide by and even showing homes, which it's frankly disappointing. But we'll get through it. We'll pivot.
Well, you absolutely will. And the strong words are going to survive. The weak ones are going to go by the wayside. And I belong to Tom Ferry's a big real estate. I'm not a real estate agent. I go there just because there's good tits and bits and I can walk away with some things I can share with my agents like you who might benefit from them.
Yeah.
So I was on a podcast listening to a podcast that he had and his information was the strong ones are going to prevail. The weak ones are going to go by the wayside because they don't understand the market. They don't know how to talk to their buyers about it. They don't understand how to let buyers know the benefit of having representation. And because they're not comfortable with that, because anything that comes to compensation, they tend to want to put their head under a rock and not have that conversation.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was always buried over here with, it's on the MLS, I'm going to pay you X for showing my home.
Sure.
But now it's not there. So now you're actually going to have to do their job.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not comfortable with. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
It is interesting. And, the conversation actually has come up more in probably the last 4 years than it ever has because it has been such a hot market for sellers. Now, that's changed a bit in the last year and a half or 2 years. But I would say, 2020, 2021 was just sellers were putting the sign in the yard and they couldn't even, think about things they'd get 20 offers in 12 hours. It was absolutely crazy. So what they were doing was they were minimizing that buyer agent commission and they were putting 2% in MLS and that kind of thing. And we were having conversations with buyers saying, look, if, I'll take 2.5, but I'm not taking 2.
Right.
So if you fall in love with a house and the seller is offering 2%, we are going to be having that conversation about that extra 0.5% because I honestly can't do my job for you as what I want to do and the level of service that I want to give.
You're hybrid, Heather, because not many people could have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because you know your worth. You know what you do. You know the value that you provide.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't because a lot of real estate agents, I believe, they don't know what they do. They don't know the value that they bring. And those are the ones that probably don't need to be in the market anyway. Yeah. They're probably the ones that have caused some of the issue.
Yeah.
Just like there's bad ones in my industry.
Absolutely. There's bad people in every industry. And unfortunately, I do think that real estate agents, it honestly is too easy to get a real estate license.
Is it?
It really is. It's too easy. I mean,
you have to take another test though, right? You hit real estate and then the broker.
Well, the broker is different. So the real estate test for me, I mean, it was just super easy. Like it was just not even challenging whatsoever. The broker agent test kicked my ass. Like I was worried about not passing it actually, because there's more stuff to it, because you have to just know so much more about about real estate in general.
You have someone that works in your office with you.
I do.
Right?
Her name's Ashley Bartley. Yeah, she's an agent.
I've seen it before. Yeah,
yeah.
I got scared a little,
and I do. I think I scared her a little. I do want to grow the brokerage at some point to more agents, but right now my kids are. I have twins, they're 17. So this last,
can you believe this body has carried?
Oh, it was ugly. Don't get me wrong. When I was,
kids are 3.
I have 2. Yeah, just twins. Yeah. So they're 17. So my plan is once they get into college, I'll try to, level up the brokerage. But for now, it's me and an agent.
So talk about the difference between an appraisal and inspection.
Okay. 2 completely different things, but people do use those words interchangeably. So an inspection is a general inspection on the house. It looks at basically the 5 major components of a house, which is foundation, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and roof. That's an inspection. So they're going to do a deep dive into all those things for you. They're going to write you a report. And that is what we kind of use to negotiate sometimes, the seller doing some concessions or
the buyer
some
pays for
repairs.
that. Yes, and then you help them pick out a inspector, right?
Yes.
And then you all go there and you're there on site during the inspection?
Yes. Well, for the inspection results, not during the inspection, because I actually, it's, the only people that want to be on site for the inspection, buyers that I work with are like engineers or something. They want to know all the components and follow the inspector around. But really, it's just the results you want to go for. You want to know about if there's anything wrong with the house in any kind of major way. So that's the inspection. Appraisal is something that you order as a lender. And what that does is it basically reinforces the value that we've put on the home.
And no, you absolutely cannot go and get an appraisal on a house without coming through a lender. That is absolutely not the case anymore. And so on the inspection, we do not see the inspection as a lender.
No, so you don't want to give the lender the inspection.
No, we don't see it. We don't require it. We don't want it. We don't want to see it. We don't even know about it. So you get the inspection. There's a shipload of stuff on there that needs to be done. What do you do with that?
So basically, the number one question I always ask my inspector is, what are your top 3 items from this inspection of this home that you just inspected? Because they know, they've seen 1,000 homes. They know what the big things are. So that's my first question. My second question is to the buyer. What are your top 3 to 5 main concerns from this? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to go back to the seller and say, fix everything in this report.
Right.
Because they're not going to do it. And it's just going to piss them off and you're going to lose your negotiating power. Yeah. So, and then obviously I look at it from my perspective too of what I've seen in the market. One of the big things that I like to kind of look at is windows is something windows. Windows.
That wasn't even on my radar.
Expensive.
Roof, maybe plumbing.
Well,
windows.
Beyond that, windows they're big because they're expensive, and a lot of times if they're not, if they're leaking and things like that, it can really affect
your double pane or triple pane or something like that.
Yeah, but like sometimes when they're just leaking and stuff, and they're not sealed properly, they have condensation or something. Windows are an expense that people don't often think of, and so that's like my 6th thing on the top of the top 5. That's like my 6th thing
on my radar.
Yeah, so that's
wow.
Yeah,
it's mold, which is a huge thing.
That's another thing. Yeah, for sure.
Super expensive.
And this is Caroline. Caroline is with Goosehead Insurance. She's part of our little powwow today. And so we have worked with Goosehead Insurance. They are I'm the mortgage broker. Thank you very much. She is an insurance broker. And we work with her, not exclusively, but she's one of 3 insurance people that we refer to. And they will go out, like me, find you the best deal and the best. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Caroline, so you were talking about mold.
Yes. So like you were saying, water is a huge thing, especially, when we go in our system and put all of client information in and then press that rate button to get that rate back, they pull back all of the, factors that go into the home. So like the age of the home, if the windows have been on that home for a long time and there's just been water that's continuously degrading that wood or whatever is sealing that into the home, like that's a huge rating factor that obviously.
So you guys can see that on a report?
So no, it's more like
age related.
Right. It's age related, and it's kind of just like if there haven't been any updates to the home, then obviously your premium's going to be higher because there's a higher risk of water damage.
Yeah.
Interesting. Insurance is one of those things that I absolutely hate.
I hate it.
We love to hate it.
I love to hate it, but it's so important.
It is so important.
I do want to talk about like the differences of like the water damage and earthquake, like all these different components, like on your regular policy that are not included. I think that's a big misnomer that's out there, because I personally have had that experience where I thought it was covered just to find out that I didn't have a separate
flood rider or something.
Oh yeah, like with a lot of people think that flood insurance is or like
part of it.
Insurance on flood. Is this okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Is included on your home policy. It's not. It's
Oh my God, I found that out the hard way. It's like,
So if you have an interior flood, like a water heater, that would be covered.
Right.
Yeah, but an exterior flood, like from a natural disaster, would not be. Correct?
No. And there's some types of like wind and hail. That's something that's covered on your insurance. But like if it's, usually neighborhoods as a whole can get flood insurance for their neighborhood.
but flood insurance from what component though? Is like, Mother Nature, or is it from the water pipe, from the water district, or your sprinkler system popped a leak, or when does it not cover it?
So when when if it's a flood, so it's like act of God. So, a river, if you're in Houston, that's where the premiums are skyrocketing because of the risk down there. So a flood like that's something, because a lot of companies, insurance companies that you don't get flood insurance through in Houston require a corresponding flood policy to go with a homeowner's insurance policy, because
if they're in a particular flood zone or something, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But here we're not in a flood zone, so we just have to make sure that we all ask for riders. Like, do you cover this? Or like what Heather was saying, like the hot water heater, that would be covered on your homeowner's policy?
Yes. So there's 4 main water coverages that you have the option to add to your home. So obviously foundation coverage, it's not a direct water coverage, but those water pipes going underneath your foundation, that plays into it. So
those are not covered.
So no, they are covered.
Really?
So
Okay.
if you are getting home insurance and you don't have foundation coverage, then that's something that you definitely need to ask your agent about, or just make sure that you have, because that can be one of the most expensive claims. A lot of carriers that offer foundation coverage, which they should, automatically default to either $5,000 to $25,000. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just one of those water coverages. So the next one, I don't know if you want me to go through all of them.
Let's hold off on that until it's just us talking, but that's a really interesting conversation. My sister-in-law just had a flood, and it's her foundation. They would cover the damage like to the sheetrock, but they're not going to cover like digging up the damn house, going through the foundation and repairing the pipes under the foundation. And it's kind of like, so she had to wait to fix that until she had enough financial resources to do it. But it's like, what the hell? Because I thought that was covered, because it was a pipe that burst under her foundation. And it's kind of like, how could that even be? So you either have shitty insurance or who would have known? And so I just thought it opens up it opens up Pandora's box for me.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it is additional coverage, so it's not an automatically included thing. So you have to make sure you have it.
I think they should tell people this, right?
Exactly.
It's like,
There really needs to be a conversation about what all is covered and what's not, because even as a professional real estate agent, like I don't know what all is covered in my insurance. So
I don't either.
Speaking of
there's like 100 pages.
They are. And so we had a plumbing leak like what your sister-in-law had, and ours was actually going to be covered. But
was it foundation under the foundation?
Yes, we've had 3 slab leaks.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
been
you should be moving.
I know.
I know a great real estate
I know. So it would have been covered, but the problem was the deductible. Because by the time we get to the deductible, like to cover it,
is it 1% or 2%?
We had a 2% deductible. Yeah, it must have been 2%, because then it would have made sense if it was 1. But it was just like right there at the cusp of being worth it or not. So we were like, why do we even want to make a claim?
Because we're having to do 2%.
Don't have the claim and just pay it.
Right, because you'll end up paying more long term.
Exactly.
Because of the claim.
Yeah.
It's so stupid, because to get loans to work right now, we're having people do 2% deductibles because of the premiums. It's like, and we can do it, but it's kind of like, do we just really screw the buyer here? But after it's over, after they get through the approval process and we close, I go back to the borrower and say, now what we need to do, because we just had to do it to get the premium down so they could qualify because the interest rates are a little bit higher. So you just have to kind of move a lot of boxes around to make things work for the buyer. Then after it's over and everything's settled, you can go back and say, look, we need to revisit your insurance. This is what we talked about, but now we need to go back and make sure you have a 1% deductible, because I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
And, but we just do that to make things work, to get them into the home, but then we go back and reassess it. But I absolutely hate that, because sometimes they'll opt to keep the 2% and then it gets back into, oh shit, you have an oh shit moment when something happens.
Right, exactly.
Because that 2%, that 1% differential is a lot.
We try to do everything we can to avoid the oh shit moments.
The oh shit moments. Because we have a lot of them. We had one this morning. My office manager called me and it was an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
It's like, should I be there or should we stay here? It's like, take your oh shit and stay there, and then we'll come back to this later. There's a lot of them in our industry. You present an offer to a seller. Why would a seller not accept the offer?
One of the reasons a seller would not take an offer would be the type of financing. Okay. So cash is king. Cash is always going to be looked at like, okay, let's
offer that you could put on a financing portion that would be equal to cash that a seller would actually consider.
Conventional 20% down is the second best.
Okay.
That's another one that's going to kind of turn ahead, because, and people always ask me, why would a seller care about how much a buyer's putting down? The reason is because the more a buyer can show that they're going to put down, the more likely they are to be able to get to the closing table.
Really?
If they're tight on money and they're showing a 0% down or a 3% down or 5% down, I know in the back of my mind that really is maybe all they have.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I want to make sure for my sellers that the buyer has plenty of money so that nothing's going to happen during the transaction that could keep them from closing.
Interesting. It's like an FHA loan? Is that?
Yeah. 3.5%. So FHA and VA, the challenges with those are with the appraisal. One of the things with FHA and VA is that the appraisals stay with the property. They don't stay with the buyer. So if say we have a VA or a FHA loan and we do, as a seller, get a low appraisal, we cannot then go back on market and get another VA or FHA
Heather.
buyer.
Semantics.
So semantics. These are important things.
That's an important thing.
Yeah. So those are the kind of things that would keep a seller.
Finding appraisal values now in this market?
Have I been
outside of the VA, oh shit moment with the VA appraisal of recent? Have you really been finding value
problematic?
Yeah.
No, not really. But okay. I do feel like I worry about it more, because in the height of the market, what was happening was appraisal waivers. Right. We love appraisal waivers as a seller.
We can still get them. Not very often, but we can still get them.
Well, you can still get them, but is a buyer going to do them? Not much.
No, I wouldn't know.
Not much. I mean, very rarely is a buyer going to say, I want any home at 7% right now. So,
so talk to me about the process. So like, this is going to be, we only got 2 more questions.
Okay.
So the process of buying a home. So someone goes out there, they come to you. What is that process going to look like for a buyer?
So first thing we're going to do is talk about their must-haves and their, what I call maybe wants. Okay. So must-haves are like 3 to 5 things that you have to have in the home that will, do you have to have a pool? Do you have to have 4 bedrooms? Do you have to have 2.5 baths as opposed to 2? Location wise, location is super, super important. And I know that old adage, location. It's there because it's real. Like you buy a house in the wrong location, you're going to immediately regret it. So I really am big on people buying in the right place. So we're going
to this because she's been with me for 3 separate homes in the last 3 years, and she's all about really guiding you, making sure that you're happy there, talking about the energy of the home, walking into the home. She asks a lot of
questions. I'm big on energy. I like
you're so big on energy, and I am too.
It's a big thing.
So it was a big thing for us, and so we actually walked right out of homes because the energy was so off. I was pretty sure that Beelzebub was in there. So we walked in, we immediately exited, did not even view the home. So, but she's really good about that.
Thank you.
What I absolutely loved about
Thank you. So then once we know all those things, all that criteria, then I will typically ask the buyer to send me homes that interest them. That'll give me a feel for what they like. Okay. And then I'll do my own search as well on top of that. And I'll send them
some. You find things that they can't find?
Yeah, a lot of times they can, especially coming soons. We have a little criteria in MLS that'll say coming soon, and those are for houses that are coming within the next 2 weeks to market. So then we'll line up showings. I typically don't like to do more than 5 to 6 houses at a time, because then people don't know what they're looking at.
You get burnt out.
Yeah. So typically we'll do 2 or 3 tours of homes. If we get beyond about 12 homes and we haven't really found the one, we're going to reevaluate our criteria.
A question. I'm going to digress for a second.
Yeah.
You're touring a home. You have to use the bathroom. What's protocol? What's acceptable?
As long as they say, as long as there's not a note in MLS or on the showing instructions, please don't use our bathroom. Use the bathroom.
You can use the bathroom.
Put the toilet seat down. I mean, that's polite. Just put the toilet seat down, you know.
Often leave
it as you find it.
The bathroom, or do I not? Do I go to the gas station?
I think it's
There's
totally.
toilet paper. I say it's a go.
Yeah, there you go. It's toilet paper's a must too.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're invading someone, like, you're tinkling someone's property? Are you spraying? Are you not?
Spraying.
It's funny that you asked that though, because there are certain things about, houses that are sort of do's and don'ts when you're looking. I always tell people, like, look in the closets. They're always like, can I look in the closet? I'm like, hell yeah, look in the closet. You got to know what the closet spaces are. But, refrigerators, typically, you don't need to look because they may not stay. They don't have to stay with the house. I don't like it when kids play with other kids' toys and that kind of thing. I think that's kind of weird. It's not good.
Weird.
Bring some toys for your kiddos. But yeah, there are certain things to do.
Kids to look at homes, is that taboo?
No, I actually think it's a good thing. If you're a family looking for a family home, bring the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if the kids, feel energy too.
Well, that is very true. They also have snotty noses.
They do.
They're like walking petri dishes. I don't know.
They're walking petri dishes.
This is why I wouldn't want to be an agent. It's like, leave the petri dish at home. I can't deal with the petri dish.
But I mean, when they get excited about a home though, a lot of times it is the one. So,
That's true.
Yeah. So once we find the home that they like, I go back to my office. I run comparables or comps to make sure it's priced right. We decide on a price. We go through all the terms. Price is important, but there's other terms in the contract that are important.
Between what they want to offer versus what you think is right. Like, how do you guide?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I really want to pay attention to when I guide buyers and offer price, let's not offend the sellers. Let's not completely offend them, because we want them to work with us. Right. So yeah, I want to get you a good deal. Absolutely. We're going to fight for a good price for the house. But at the same time, like, let's be reasonable and not
seller. Like
I don't know, 50 grand off or something. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it depends on the level of the house too, of course. But when you've got a $2 million home, 50 grand off isn't that much. Yeah. But when you've got a $150,000 home, 50 grand is a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
So I like to think about that, and I like to make reasonable offers, because what I want to do is have the first or second go at that offer be like, okay, we got it. And if you like the home and you want the home, let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Let's not play house.
No.
Let's make it happen.
Right.
So can real estate agents, can they share what other offers are when there's offers on the table?
That's a good question. It depends.
Okay.
When we were going through our multiple offer stuff, a lot of times we would have 5 offers or something. We would have maybe 2 that were competing.
That's just crazy to me to have that many offers. I don't know.
The most I ever had was 24. 20.
That's just crazy. I don't even know how you go through that.
Basically, you look at the financing first and the price. Price and financing first, and all the other ones get thrown out.
Really?
You usually end up with 5 that you're like, okay, these are the ones. But I had sellers where I would say, okay, do you want to share the price and see if this one is almost there with price, that we have a lot of terms that we really like, we can get them up, and maybe it's a lease back or something. Okay. The sellers get to stay in the house after closing. And the one that is the best price doesn't have that. But this one does. Can I share the price with them and say, can you match this?
And why would they not want to do that?
Why would who not want to?
Why would the seller not want to share with the buyer or the potential buyer, like what the other offer is?
So you could say, let's go out for highest and best. And then you could get more.
That always confused me, because I've been in that situation. It's like, what the hell is highest and best? How do you know? It's like, if I offered you $700,000, how do I know what the hell highest?
You don't. That's why I hate it. That's why I hate it. That's why I hate it. So if you say, okay, so let's just say round numbers. So this one's 500,000.
Yeah.
This one's 490.
Okay.
So if I ask the 490 people, can you come up to 5? Or I say, and they say yes. Okay, great, we're at 5. But if I say to the 490 people, we need you to really come with your highest and best.
Yeah.
We could get 510. You know what I'm saying? So you could get higher if you don't.
Private auction.
It is.
It
is.
Except at a private auction, you can go in there and see what everybody else is bidding, and you can go put your name down.
I don't know. I don't know how private auction works.
I don't either, but that sounds annoying. I've been in that situation before.
I know.
You don't know.
You don't know. You're blind.
Mm-hmm. And so they can't share with you, look, these people offered you this, and like, this is what we're dealing with, come up with something better than $700,000 and you could probably get the home. That seems to be in their favor.
It's up to the seller, but it's also important to be fair to all the agents and all the buyers. So if you're going to share it with one,
you got to share it with
them all if they ask. So I've had situations like that too, where I've had an offer come in, and then I've had an agent say, well, do you have any offers?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, yes, I have an offer that came in, because that's ethical. But
can you say an offer's come in when an offer has not come in?
No.
Okay.
But I guarantee you people do that, and it drives me crazy.
I think it would be a huge selling tactic.
Yeah, it's so unethical. And I know it happens.
What is your projection for 2024? Our busy season that's coming up. What are your projections?
I think that people who have to move are going to move, and people that don't have to move are not going to move.
And that it's going to be because?
The market is kind of locked down. We have a lot of people who own homes that have a lot of equity in them, but they have a 2 or 3% mortgage rate right now. And that's what they're paying on. So if they don't have to make a move for any kind of reason, a big lifestyle change, a divorce, a need to downsize, a parent's home that has to be sold, they're just not going to do it, because they're not going to want to go buy a home that make like a lateral move for a 7% rate. So I think it's really going to be a have to kind of market rather than a want to. Like
just
it's been in the past.
We did lock someone yesterday at 5.5%. So they're not
nice.
So rates are coming
down.
down.
A 15-year?
30-year.
It was a 30-year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Well, we're a broker, as you know. We're mortgage bankers.
Yeah.
And we always go let the borrower, like what you guys are doing, like that they pay your commission. So we're having them pay the commission so that we can get the very lowest rate for them.
Wow.
So there's nothing, inflated in there. So it just works out better for the borrower, but they do have to pay our commission, which is usually right now about 1% to help them out. So
that's great.
Yeah, it is. And so the first time home buyers, Heather, you don't think that's going to change for them? Like they can do rate buy downs. Is that still a thing out there with you guys? Are you seeing it?
I'm not seeing as much as I was. I think what's happened is people always get used to a new norm. Whenever rates tick up, people are like, oh my God, the sky is falling. And everything slows down for a month or two. Yeah. And then everybody gets on back out there, especially first-time home buyers, because there's
so many of them out there.
They have to move. It's just like what I was saying a minute ago. Like if you have to make a move, you're going to move. We had people buying homes in the 80s at 11%, right? 12, 13%, 17%. Everybody gets used to that new norm, and everybody gets back out there. So the buy downs, I really have not seen that. I mean, I see it offered a lot, but I don't see it really.
I don't know why people aren't taking advantage of it, because you can do it. Like you can go from a 6% down to a 3% for the first year. It's not an amazing thing. It's just for a year, but it will sure as hell help you acclimate to the transition. So I don't understand why more people are not using it.
I think people just aren't as educated on it, and they're not being offered it. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Well, it has to be. It's very annoying.
Yeah. Well, and I think if we're talking about the changes with real estate commissions happening in July too, then the buy downs may not be as feasible because sellers aren't going to be able to pay that money.
Well, see, we had a lot of meetings with a lot of lenders recently. Like, well, what are we doing with these? Can we actually roll this soft cost into the mortgage? And so now it becomes a compliance issue. And so it's like, well, now it has to appraise. Well, we can kind of do it, but it has to look a different way. We know how to do it, but it's like, do we do that? Do we not? So we're playing around with that. But
it's a shell game. You got to move the
shell game. Yeah. It's like, but we get back to we're getting to the same result. But now I think like what you were talking about is political, but now we're having to do this shell game to make it work. Whereas just leave it the hell alone. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. Yeah. It's not broken. It was working fine.
I 100% agree.
I think it's the stupidest thing, and I do think it's political.
I do too. I honestly think it's an attack on home ownership in this country. And I think there's other signs of it as well, like the complete rental home communities that are going up that I'm like, don't get me started on my soapbox on those things. That drives
me not a conspiracy
bonkers.
However, it's like you see this coming up, and it's like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I want to say that.
I'm not either.
I'm not a crazy person.
I'm not either, but we're all seeing signs of this challenge.
And they're going up everywhere. And it's like it's got socialized behavior all over it. It's
100%.
Like, it's like,
you know what it reminds me of? Is it reminds me of back in like the early 1900s when you'd have these company towns. That's what it reminds me of. The company, yes, the company would own the houses in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
they would own the store.
Yes,
they would own. It
just gave me goosies. Just for the record,
it just freaks me out. It freaks me out.
Kids, Heather. I
know.
It's so weird. It's like, I was talking to someone. They're like, well, we need to buy out our lease. It's like, well, we can work that into the concessions or whatever. And so, but they're like, my God, we're paying $2,200 a month in rent. It's like, oh my God, well, why would you do that?
The challenge with the rental rates too is that they've gotten so high that people then are not able to save for a house.
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly. You can't save for a house, and then you can't save for the person to advise you on paying for the house and buying the house.
I know, it's so crazy. Back in the 80s, we had down payment assistance that were coming from Nehemiah and these nonprofit organizations where they would, again, it was a shell game. It's like it was all coming from the same pot. It's just how we got there was a little different. They took those off the shelf, when we had our crisis in 2005. Like, we can't do this anymore. It's a violation. We don't like it anymore. So then we thought the roof was, now it's coming back. So now we have a grant. We have a down payment assistance program, which is truly a federal grant that just hit the street. And it's 100% financing. And so it's a wonderful program, 600 credit score. And so those are becoming more and more prominent. Now, granted, the interest rate's 2% higher on those than normal FHA. So right now we're locking at 5.8. So right now those, they're getting up there close
7.8, yeah.
8%. But like I tell people, get into a house,
refinance
in 6 months, you're good to go. And and that's the way to go. And that's the way to get people in. But for the love of God, just stop the crazy. Just stop
the crazy. Yeah.
It's like there's enough squirrels, there's enough crazy.
Yeah.
And so we're just having to shuffle around, making our job harder.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, there's a solution. Just stop the freaking crazy. Put Trump back in office.
Let's not get political, but put Trump back in office.
And I didn't say that. Back in office.
We're going to edit that
out. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll put that on my Republicans for Salina. Heather,
thank you.
In closing, do you have anything that you would like to say to potential buyers or to our audience?
Call me for advice. I'm ready to help anyone and anywhere.
I love this girl. I have known Heather for so long, and she's helped me so much. And not only is her energy fantastic, she understands our company, our brokerage. We have worked together for so long, and she's helped me personally. She's helped me through a very difficult time in my life, and I absolutely love this girl. So I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, and I love you too. And thank you for having me on. I'm
it was
flattered.
It was delightful.
Thank you.
With all the shit shows.